Okay, welcome to the third part of this session, where we've got a question and answer session with Kevin Ellis and Matthew Ruddle, whose name I said correctly this time, unlike when I was talking about him just a moment ago before we started this recording. Thanks, guys, for joining us on this question and answer panel. So we're going to be speaking about SEO and paid ads, because we've heard about websites and how important they are. We've heard about the use of digital technology from Emma Louise Vasari. And the websites was all Chris Dawes. So we've got a chance to ask questions about SEO and paid ads. That's you, isn't it, Kevin? And Matthew, you're all about automation, newsletters, social media, that kind of thing. So I'm quite looking forward to really getting into it and asking some questions. But before we ask the questions, let's find out a bit more about who we're talking to. Kevin, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why we should listen to your answers.
Here's Duncan. So I'm Kevin Ellis. I run Blue Space Media. We're a small digital marketing agency. So we help people fundamentally achieve online success. So we work with customers who might be one-man bands right up to small, medium businesses with 40, 50 employees. So I've been working in the digital marketing arena for probably the best part of 15, 20 years. So lots of experience, lots of knowledge. And, you can tell, I don't take myself too seriously, and very friendly. So that's me, Kevin Ellis, Blue Space.
Thank you very much. And Matthew, who are you and what do you do? And why
who am I? Well, my name's Matthew Ruddle. Thank you. So I run a company called Ruddle Digital. Kind of like Kevin. I've been in sales and marketing for 15 plus years for my sins. And you know what? I've worked with some amazing companies, one-man bands right the way through to companies all around the world, China, Brazil, America, all of those. Worked with people like Rugby World Cup 2015, British Athletics. You said about newsletters. I'm probably responsible for sending more than 400 million opted in emails. I will say opted in, it's all fine. And currently, get to work with some fantastic people like Sharon Davis, for instance, Sam Warburton, and a few others. So, and yes, as Gary's put up, I do have a podcast that I do need to start the second series of, called The Business of Sport Show, where I've had people again like Sean Fitzpatrick, the All Black Legends, the ex-CEO of the Welsh Rugby Union, and Derek Redmond. If anybody remembers, seeing the Barcelona Olympics where his hamstring went, I think it was. So got to kind of really get to grips with how that was, all those events, and get some great insight there, because again, about that persistence and keeping going. So so that's me. That's the boring bit over with now.
Amazing. I didn't find that boring at all. So before we get into the questions then, starting with you, Matthew, as you're talking already, this is all about digital presence. What does digital presence mean to you?
Means having a presence online. Essentially,
excellent.
In a nutshell.
So Kevin,
yes, nice and simple.
Sorry, Matthew, carry on.
No, I mean, it's got to have purpose. We also, when everybody went into lockdown 1, every man and his dog came out online and just created this noise. There was no rhyme or reason to it, but their normal day-to-day business, whether that was a shop front or anything like that, was all shut down. So they had to come up and look online. So you've got to have a presence online these days. Most people will look your business up before they even do business with you. So you have to have a presence, but it has to, it has to be to the right audience, has to be the right message, and has to be in the right places. If your audience isn't on TikTok, don't do dances on TikTok. It's as simple as that, really. So it's got to be the right message in the right places for the right audience.
Excellent. And Kevin, the same question to you.
Yeah, I guess just following on from what Matthew said, I think, from a digital presence, or what it means for me is, you've got to be consistent. And consistency can be across multiple platforms. So it means a website, it means email, it means social media, and so on. So having a consistent presence is important, credible, Obviously you need to, again, you get your credibility from the consistency that you're, with your online information. When it comes to improving and managing your presence and having a better presence than your competitors, you have to be informative and you have to be educational. So there's two key elements around your, whether it's, so you're not posting sporadically on social media or whatever, you have to think about it. So a good digital presence, content wise, it has to be informative and educational. So that'd be the sort of 4 key points for me.
Excellent. And I guess that kind of ties in with SEO as well. SEO is seen as this weird, mysterious thing. And I think that kind of benefits SEO experts to keep people thinking of it that way. So make it simple for us. Break it down. What's SEO really all about?
So SEO, so the only thing that's complicated about SEO is the search engines that you are trying to appeal to. So the only people that make it complicated are Google's, the Yahoos of this world and everything else. But if we start with Google, Google is the #1 search engine in the world. And that is what we're all trying to beat, if you like, in terms of, getting a better, what we call organic presence. So SEO, search engine optimization, is what it's known as. In terms of fundamentally, it's about knowledge. So to understand the concept of SEO in its simplest form it's to get your website or your content ranking as high up Google as you can. And there are a multitude of ways in which that can be achieved. I think at the last count, I think there's somewhere between 270 and 300 factors that Google's algorithm picks up on. And myself, Matt, any digital marketing guy out there or gal out there does not know exactly what they are, what their ranking points are, and so on and so forth. But what you can do for yourself is to improve your knowledge, get tools, free tools like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Trends. They will all give you absolutely key information about you and your business as to how people are finding your website, which content pages are working well. And that fundamentally is the starting point to create a successful kind of SEO platform, if you like.
Cool. And I've often heard it said that blogs are essential to good SEO. So, I don't know if that's true, but certainly fresh content that answers questions, that brings people to your website has to play a key role in that. So why is that so important? What should people be doing in the way of blogs? And you both kind of mentioned consistency as well as a part of it. Is there a right amount of blogs to create frequency-wise?
I'll pick this one up again, Matt. I'm sure you can add in at the end, but in terms of blogging, an interesting stat: how many blogs do you think there are on the internet right now? It's over 1 billion. Okay, the world doesn't need any more blogs. But the point to the blog is, or a blog post, is that it's all about content. It's all about relevance. It's all about what Google deems interesting and content that is going to resonate with its consumers, i.e. people that use Google. So blogging is important and content is important. But it comes down to that word again, consistency. There is no rule, hard and fast, that you have to do it weekly, monthly, yearly, as long as you do something regularly, it will get picked up by Google. If you're doing something weekly, you can expect Google's algorithm and its bots to come back every week to see if you've got new content. If you don't have new content, you will get penalized. How much depends on how well your pages rank and so on and so forth. So the short answer is there's no hard and fast. Definitely do it. Blogs, you don't have to have uber long posts. There is a rule. Different platforms have different weightings, but fundamentally a 300-ish word blog is going to be just enough from a web digital standpoint.
So I heard recently, and I don't know what truth there is to this, that if you've got less than 500 words on a particular page on your website, it's better to actually tell Google to not track it because it doesn't deem that to be enough to get a low enough bounce rate and for people to have enough interest to stay on the page long enough. Is that fair, or has someone just made that up to sound cool?
Is that for me or is that for Matt?
Well, only because you said 300 word blog is enough. I just kind of
that off. Length of content is less of a factor now. The one thing that Google comes back and gets first and foremost, it comes and gets the title, the header tag. It looks at the meta description. It looks at the opening paragraph. So the length of everything else, to a point, is irrelevant. So it's all to do. The last Google algorithm update was all to do with concise content, or that's not how it is exactly worded, but fundamentally that first paragraph, those first 30, 40 words, that's kind of, linking it back to a keyword term. That's what Google's looking at in its latest algorithm update.
There's been a switch or a trend over the last few months. We've seen it with I'll highlight LinkedIn, for instance. So ephemeral content, as it's kind of coined, which is the short bursts of content. So LinkedIn have tried it with their stories, things like that. It's all because as human beings, our attention span is like 8 seconds. It's less than a goldfish. So therefore, like Kevin said, that first bit of information, you've got to hook people into it. If they're really interested, they'll read on. But the rest of it, I mean, people out there like Neil Patel and all these will talk about 2,000 word blogs and things like that. That's great if you've got people to write that content and you can, you can throw all those words at it. But realistically, we've got a snapshot to get people's attention, whether it is on social media, whether it is on blogs, we've got to grab their attention. And that's why, there's more focus on that block at the moment, because people just, as Kev said, there are more than 1 billion blogs out there. So therefore, everybody's fighting for so much attention and we just don't give it. 8 seconds is not a long time.
Excellent. So good blogs are informative, right? You spoke about knowledge. They give, there has to be something there that people want to read, some reason to read on. So you capture them in the first bit. Matthew, you said you're responsible for how many emails that go out, newsletters that go out?
More than 400 million over the years.
Brilliant. What do you do, or what should business owners do in their emails? Because I've heard it said before that no one wants a newsletter. Why would they want to care about your news? They care about themselves. So what would you say? What can we do with a newsletter that's different from a blog, that would give people interest and reason to keep reading and stay subscribed?
So if you think about it with emails, again, you've got that short, sharp window. Think about your inbox. There are emails flying in left, right, and center. I've had 3 or 4 ping up since we even started this. So the whole point is that you've got very little real estate to grab people's attention. You've got to use that subject line really, really effectively. Personalize it. So draw people in. There's another little trick that people often overlook as well, and that is the address name where the actual email comes from. So for me, it comes from Matthew from Ruddle Digital, because there's 2 important bits of information. It's come from me as a person, and you can see my company name in there as well. Also, the email address it comes from, don't send it out from a job-based email address. So I've had email newsletters from people where they've used the email address no reply at. Straight away, how friendly is that? I want to send you information, but I don't want anything back from you. Rubbish. So don't use job-based roles like info at or sales at, or use a named person. In my previous life, when dealing with all these companies around the world, I sent emails from m.ruddle at. Now, multiple people picked up that email address, so it wasn't just me. It wasn't my real one, but people would reply to it. But again, with newsletters, things like that, is you've only got a short amount of time. There's going to be another email that flies in that somebody else is going to try and grab your attention. So keep it short, sharp, snappy. Have maybe the first paragraph, like Kevin said on the content, have that opening paragraph of the blog with a link to say, click here to read more. Because just sending out an email newsletter, open rates, great. They're nice to have, but you want people to click through and do something with that newsletter. So to take them to your web page, where you can then manage them, because you could have a chatbot, you could get them to absorb more information, watch a video. I think Kev mentioned something in a video there. So you could do more with them. But also don't confuse them with 101 different links in a newsletter. Keep it nice and simple. 1 or 2 links, plus the unsubscribe to make that clear. But again, it's just sharing that information, personalize the content. Even spammers know my name. So if spammers know my name, if I've signed up for something, they can at least use that in the subject line and drop it into the content of the email as well.
Excellent, absolutely. So you mentioned video in there, and I think that's a really good point. So we spoke about blogs, and Gary asked this in the comments as well. What do you need to do differently to get videos and podcasts even recognized by these search engines? What tips and tricks can you guys suggest to get them noticed and out there on Google, etc.?
From my point of view, with podcasts, is doing the videos. Use YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, so they absolutely love it. Make use of the full description as well, because what a lot of people don't do is they only put a short bit of information there, but we want keywords in there. There's a cool little tip that you could do. So on your phone, for instance, you can use the app Rev. So Rev allows you to, no, not Rev, I'm getting confused now. Otter. Otter is the one, because you can put it next to your video, put it next to your speakers, and get it to transcribe the video. And then you can use that in the text for the description as well, highlighting key areas and things like that as well. But again, picking the right title. So don't just go, and even I made this mistake on my podcast of going episode, whatever, Sean Fitzpatrick, All Blacks legend. So what? Give it an actual more interesting title. Tell people what's actually in there. Even if it's just, All Blacks, John Olomu, 95 World Cup, things like that. The headline, the key features to draw people in. And again, from a social media point of view, sharing it, short, sharp little clips, little snippets, little previews, teasers to draw people into it.
Yeah, I wrote the intro to my, so I've got a podcast that goes out every week. I wrote the intro to last week's in much more depth than I normally do, and it made a difference just taking the time to do that. Plus, I then had that copy to go, copy, paste, there we go. I can share elements of that to my social media as well, much easier than writing it out each time. So yeah, it does make a big difference. Thank you. Gary says, let's talk about Google My Business ranking. So Gary says, is his ranking high? I mean, that's just a selfish question, Gary, to be honest, asking about yours. No, but how important is Google ranking, and how much time should we spend updating Google My Business to get noticed that way?
I'll answer that one if you like. So just quickly, my tap's worth on video. Obviously, YouTube is the second biggest search engine after Google. It's owned by Google. So there is absolute value in that video. The video content that Google likes, ideally, needs to be 10 minutes. So from an indexing perspective, 10 minutes is what they like. But you can use the snippets on social media to drive traffic to your website, embed that video into your page, into your best performing pages. So if your homepage is your best performing homepage, get a video on there. So that's just my tuppence worth into that. But Google My Business, everyone should have a Google My Business listing. It's free. It is basically Google's, ultimate database of businesses. They used it originally to launch effectively a social media platform, which failed. So Google My Business now very much forms part of their local search algorithm. So there are 2 algorithms. So local search and then main search. And Google My Business, you should treat your Google My Business listing as as a social media platform, even though it isn't. And you should post on there as regularly as you feel comfortable. So if it's weekly, fine. If it's monthly, fine. Again, Google will learn and understand what content you're putting on there, and it'll come back and check. So if you're doing it daily, you've got to keep going daily. So, unless you can and have got the time to do that, do it. But if you don't, which most people don't, then you're into weekly or monthly. But absolutely do it regularly. Google will like you for it, and you will benefit from it over time. It's not an instant thing. It's a time thing.
It's definitely an area where I personally could spend more focus. Even something as simple as every week I release a podcast and share it in various places. It's just one other platform to share it on, but doing that would be consistent, because that's the same time every week that the podcast goes out.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Really good tip. Oh, Kevin.
Just on that consistency bit, somebody once said to me that they could be stranded on a desert island for weeks, for months, or years, or whatever, and they still know that it would be 3 o'clock on a Friday, because that's when we used to send out our newsletter. So because we were that consistent, at 3 o'clock every Friday, a newsletter would go out. They could be wherever, and they'd know exactly when and where it was. So consistency is key, and people pick up on consistency. They then look out for it.
They do. I recently changed. So I sent out I don't call it a newsletter. I call it Monkey Cool, because it's written by my little monkey mascot here. His name's Bananas. So he sends out an email every week, and it goes out on Sunday at 5 p.m. Now, I've recently moved software and changed things around a little bit, and it still goes out at Sunday at 5 p.m. However, it now goes out Sunday 5 p.m. at the local time for the person receiving it, rather than just my time. And I got emails back from people saying, oh, you've changed the time you're sending Monkey Cool. No, I haven't. And some of that was because I had an international audience, and some of it was because people have their I think it's probably Google, set to the wrong time zone. And we're receiving it in someone else's time zone. So that's an interesting point.
That's so important about time zones, that if you are dealing with an international audience, don't just blanket it to the UK. Try and fit it around them, because people value that. I managed Xerox's European partner communications for quite a while, and they were just happy with it just going out on a Friday at 5 o'clock. Well, when you're communicating with 23 different countries, and you're sending out 5 o'clock on a Friday in the UK, well, everybody in Germany, and further afield, have all gone home. They're not going to see it until they get back on Monday. So it's pointless. So therefore, being able to tailor it towards more of the local audience, again, just shows more value to that effect.
Excellent. Gary was just clarifying what he meant is it worth looking at Google My Business? It wasn't really a selfish question. We all knew that. I just like teasing Gary. He's also said, talking about digital ads, where should I spend my money? Actually, this is a really key question, because you could just throw money constantly, if you're not doing it well, at Facebook ads, the same for Google ads, and probably a myriad of other different places. What's the right kind of budget to be starting at? Like, if you've only got 100 quid to spend, is it worth bothering, or would you spend that on creating some organic content to put out there instead, or whatever? And how should you spend your money? Where should I advertise?
Great question. It's the $1 million question, Duncan, and there is no
$1 million. Well, that's me.
There is no right and wrong answer, but fundamentally you've got to start somewhere, and they all do different things. And again, it comes back to budget, and it comes back to, what am I going to get my best bang for my buck? Is it literally spending £100 on a blog post, or you're doing some SEO optimization, or starting with Google ads or Facebook, and so on and so forth? The difference is with paid ads is they are very quick in terms of return. So you will know very quickly, just what your, money in and money out is going to achieve for you. But you have to go into it. You can't. Too many people I've seen over the years haven't done a lot of these things. So you've got to set a clear objective. you've got to understand what it is. Think bigger picture. What are your business goals? What are your advertising goals? And once you've got clarity, you can then narrow in on maybe what platform or what points that you need to think about in order to what platform is going to be best for you. So
it's also about target audience then as well, isn't it? Because once you know your objective, if your audience isn't on LinkedIn, don't throw money at LinkedIn. If they're on Facebook, then do that. Setting up some ads earlier for somebody, and the default go-to for Facebook is men and women between the ages of like 16 or 18 and 65 in the UK. Well, that's a pretty broad line. And this is where your budget can easily be spent. That if it's going out to every man and his dog, they don't necessarily want to know about what you're selling. So you need to know your target audience, because then you can pick your platform. Then, and I'm sure Kevin's the same. I always say with ad spend, dip your toe in the water, because like Kev said, very quickly whether you're hitting a rich vein of gold or a bit of fool's gold. So therefore you can ramp your budget up accordingly, but at least you can start to learn about it, because until you start doing some of these things, it's all guesswork. You can narrow it down, but as soon as you press play, you start to find out whether you put the right ingredients into the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, unfortunately, digital marketing, certainly when it comes to the paid elements, there is a bit of trial and error. Even Google will tell you when you start a Google campaign, the campaign itself, it's learning. It is a learning phase. The first 30 days are a learning phase. So your returns, you should expect very little, or, certainly not as much, so don't. And that's one thing that people make the mistake of. They think they're going to put it in and they're going to get it all straight back. But there has to be an element of learning, and that's what Google Ads is. It's an AI platform fundamentally that then structures and helps tweak the campaign and finds the right audience, finds the best times, and so on and so forth.
So just for a little clarity then, because I think I get it, but I just want to make sure it's clear for me and for those that are listening. You've said you get results pretty quickly, or you get to see pretty quickly what kind of return you're going to get. You've also said it takes at least a month to embed and learn.
Yeah. So
how long should I set my target for?
For me, my clients, we talk about paid advertising. It's the minimum of 3 months. So you look at an investment that you can be comfortable with for a minimum of 3 months, and whether that's £50 a month, whether that's £500 a month or £5 a month, whatever fits. But it's got to be over an extended period. Otherwise, you're not going to have the data, and you're not going to be able to compare and contrast and do all of the things that you want to do with that campaign. And that goes for anything. That goes from Facebook, any of those social media channels, and Google Ads, exactly the same. 3 months is the minimum time period that I would be recommending to people.
Excellent. Right, so we're very near the end of this session now. In the very brief time that we've got left, if you each had to give one short, snappy tip for people to take away more than anything else from this session, what would it be? Starting with Matthew.
Know your target audience. It's something I always bang on about in any course that I run. Look, I've made the mistakes. I've been there, got the t-shirt, spent hundreds of thousands of pounds making the mistakes of trying to be everything to everyone. And at the end of the day, you're nothing to no one. So therefore, know your target audience, because whether you're doing SEO, paid ads, even the content you're creating, you can be very specific. You know exactly what they want, how they want it delivered, where they want it delivered. Without knowing your target audience, you better have deep pockets.
Beautiful. And Kevin?
Yeah, I think, in terms of summary, marketing never stops. Very much like what Chris Dawes said about your website. It goes live, but it's never finished. So marketing never stops, and what works today might not work tomorrow. So for me, the best approach is to keep testing it, keep learning, and keep doing. And it may well create overwhelm and information overload, but that's okay. Just focus on the low hanging fruit at first, and that would be the sort of overview of it. And realistically, when it comes to sales and marketing, there are three types of people. There are those that make things happen, there are those that watch things happen, and there are those that are wondering what happened. So be a make things happen person.
Excellent. Brilliant. And what a beautiful note to end it on. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your pearls of wisdom with us. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and asking you questions. Hopefully it's been useful for everyone else and not just me asking everything that I want to know. So thanks very much.